Hello everyone, and welcome back to Chill English Channel. We're very happy you're here with us today.
Hi everyone. Whether you're relaxing at home, walking outside, studying, or enjoying a quiet evening somewhere peaceful, thank you for spending time learning English with us.
I'm Sophia.
And I'm Jake.
Today, we're going to talk about something that affects every conversation, every friendship, and almost every relationship in life.
That's right. Today's topic is personality.
More specifically, we're going to talk about how to describe personality naturally in English.
Personality is one of the most common topics in everyday conversation.
People often ask questions like, what kind of person are you? How would you describe yourself? Or are you more introverted or extroverted?
These questions can lead to really interesting conversations because personality is deeply connected to identity.
And for English learners, personality is a very useful topic because it helps you practice emotional vocabulary, social language, and natural conversation skills.
Learning how to describe people naturally can make your English sound much more fluent and expressive.
Sometimes learners know basic vocabulary like nice, shy, or friendly.
But they aren't always sure how native speakers actually talk about personality in real conversations.
That's why today we're going to explore personality through calm and natural English conversation.
And along the way, we'll teach you useful vocabulary, sentence patterns, and expressions you can use in daily life.
Before we begin today's lesson, if you enjoy learning English through relaxed and meaningful conversations like this, please subscribe to Chill English Channel. Subscribing helps us continue creating calm and useful English lessons for learners around the world. All right, Jake, let's begin with a simple question.
Okay, I'm ready.
How would you describe your personality?
That's actually harder than it sounds.
I know. Describing yourself can feel surprisingly difficult.
I think most people understand themselves emotionally, but putting personality into words is another challenge.
That's very true. If I had to describe myself, I would probably say I'm calm, thoughtful, and a little introverted.
Introverted? Yeah, I enjoy spending time with people, but I also need quiet time to recharge mentally.
I think many people misunderstand introverts sometimes.
Definitely.
Some people think introverted means shy or antisocial.
But that's not always true at all.
Exactly.
Introverted people can still enjoy conversations and friendships. They just usually lose energy from too much social interaction.
Right. After spending a long time around people, I usually need some quiet time alone. That makes sense.
Quiet environments help me relax and think clearly.
I can relate to that sometimes too.
Really? I always imagined you as more extroverted.
I think I'm somewhere in the middle.
Ah, one of those balanced people.
Maybe. I enjoy social situations, but I also really value peaceful alone time.
That actually sounds very healthy.
I think personality is often more flexible than people imagine.
What do you mean?
Well, some people act differently depending on the environment.
That's true.
Someone might appear quiet in large groups, but become very talkative around close friends.
I think that describes many people actually. Personality is not always completely fixed.
And comfort level changes behavior a lot.
Exactly. Around people I trust, I become much more relaxed and expressive.
Same here.
I think trust affects personality expression more than people realize.
That's a really interesting point.
Sometimes people judge personality too quickly based on first impressions.
And first impressions can be very misleading.
Absolutely.
Some quiet people are actually very funny and emotionally warm once you know them well.
While some confident people may actually feel nervous internally.
That's why understanding personality requires time and patience.
Let's teach our listeners a useful sentence pattern.
Good idea.
One very natural pattern is, I would describe myself as blank.
For example, I would describe myself as calm and thoughtful.
Or, I would describe myself as energetic and outgoing.
This pattern sounds very natural in English conversations.
Another useful pattern is, people often say I'm blank.
For example, people often say I'm easy to talk to.
Or, people often say I'm very organized.
Native English speakers use this pattern very often because it feels more natural and less self-centered.
Exactly. Sometimes it feels easier to describe yourself through other people's opinions.
Let's continue talking about personality types.
Okay.
Do you think you were always introverted?
Honestly, yes. Even as a child, I enjoyed quiet hobbies more than loud activities.
What kind of hobbies?
Reading, drawing, listening to music, building things.
That sounds peaceful.
I also preferred small groups instead of large crowds,
Large crowds can feel exhausting sometimes.
especially when there's too much noise and stimulation.
I think modern life can feel overstimulating in general.
Definitely. Constant notifications, social media, advertisements, busy schedules. Sometimes people don't even realize how mentally tired they are.
That's why many people need quiet spaces to recover emotionally.
Especially introverted people.
But extroverted people often recover energy differently.
Yes, extroverts usually gain energy from social interaction.
Spending time with people can actually improve their mood and motivation,
Exactly.
while introverts often feel emotionally drained after too much social interaction,
That difference is really important to understand,
especially in friendships and relationships.
because people sometimes misunderstand each other's emotional needs.
For example, an introverted person might need quiet time alone,
But an extroverted friend might incorrectly think, are they upset with me?
when actually the person simply needs mental rest.
Understanding personality differences improves communication a lot.
Let's introduce another useful expression.
The expression is, I tend to be more blank.
For example, I tend to be more reserved around new people.
Or, I tend to be more outgoing in comfortable environments.
Reserved is another useful vocabulary word.
Yes, reserved means quiet, controlled, and not overly expressive emotionally.
Reserved people are often misunderstood as cold or unfriendly.
Even though many reserved people are actually very caring.
Exactly.
Personality is much more complicated than simple labels.
Another important idea is emotional expressiveness,
Some people express emotions very openly.
while others keep emotions more private.
Neither style is necessarily better.
It often depends on culture, upbringing, personality, and life experiences,
Some families communicate emotions openly.
while others are much more emotionally reserved.
That can shape personality a lot during childhood.
I think life experiences also affect personality over time.
Definitely.
People change as they grow older.
Experiences can make people more confident, more cautious, more patient, or more emotionally mature.
Emotionally mature is a very useful phrase.
Yes, an emotionally mature person handles emotions in a calm and healthy way.
Emotional maturity is often more important than confidence.
I completely agree.
Some people appear confident externally but still struggle emotionally.
While emotionally mature people usually communicate more calmly and respectfully.
Another important personality trait is empathy.
Empathy means understanding other people's emotions and experiences.
Empathetic people often make others feel comfortable and understood.
They listen carefully and pay attention to emotional details.
Good listeners are usually appreciated in friendships.
Definitely. Many people simply want to feel heard and understood.
Let's teach another useful sentence pattern.
Good idea.
You can say, I'm the kind of person who,
For example, I'm the kind of person who enjoys deep conversations.
or I'm the kind of person who needs quiet time to recharge.
This pattern is excellent because it sounds very natural and descriptive.
Another useful pattern is, I usually feel more comfortable when,
For example, I usually feel more comfortable when conversations are calm and relaxed.
or I usually feel more comfortable around open-minded people.
Open-minded is another.
Good listeners are usually appreciated in friendships.
Definitely. Many people simply want to feel heard and understood.
Let's teach another useful sentence pattern.
Good idea.
You can say, I'm the kind of person who,
For example, I'm the kind of person who enjoys deep conversations.
or I'm the kind of person who needs quiet time to recharge.
This pattern is excellent because it sounds very natural and descriptive.
Another useful pattern is, I usually feel more comfortable when,
For example, I usually feel more comfortable when conversations are calm and relaxed.
or I usually feel more comfortable around open-minded people.
Open-minded is another very important personality word.
Yes, open-minded people are willing to listen to different ideas and perspectives,
Open-mindedness is very important in communication.
especially when talking with people who have different personalities or opinions.
I think emotionally intelligent people are usually more open-minded too.
Emotional intelligence is such an interesting topic.
Definitely.
Emotional intelligence means understanding emotions, both your own emotions and other people's emotions.
People with strong emotional intelligence often communicate more effectively.
They notice emotional signals, body language, and tone of voice more carefully.
And they usually respond more thoughtfully during conversations.
Thoughtful is another useful personality adjective.
Thoughtful people think carefully about other people's feelings.
They are considerate, attentive, and emotionally aware.
I think thoughtful people often create calmer and healthier relationships.
Me too.
Personality affects almost every part of life.
Friendships,
Communication,
relationships,
work environments.
even the way people handle stress.
Exactly.
Some people become quiet under stress.
Others become emotional or impatient,
Some people prefer solving problems immediately.
while others need time to process emotions first.
Personality differences can sometimes create misunderstandings.
But they can also make relationships more interesting and balanced.
I think understanding personality helps people become more patient with each other.
Definitely.
When you understand that different people communicate differently, it becomes easier to avoid unfair judgments.
And maybe that's one of the most important parts of emotional maturity, learning how to understand people instead of immediately judging them.
One thing I find fascinating about personality is how differently people communicate.
That's very true.
Two people can have completely different communication styles, even if they are both kind and intelligent.
Exactly. Personality affects not only what people say, but also how they say it.
Some people are naturally very expressive,
They talk openly about their thoughts and emotions.
while other people communicate more quietly and carefully,
And sometimes those differences can create misunderstandings.
especially when people expect others to communicate the same way they do.
That happens all the time.
For example, talkative people are sometimes misunderstood as attention-seeking.
While quiet people are sometimes misunderstood as unfriendly or uninterested.
Even though neither assumption is necessarily true.
Exactly.
Quiet people often have rich inner thoughts and emotions.
They may simply process information internally before speaking,
Processing emotions internally is actually very common.
especially among thoughtful or sensitive people.
Sensitive is an interesting personality word.
Yes, sensitive people often notice emotional details more strongly.
They may react deeply to stress, criticism, conflict, or emotional situations.
But sensitivity is not weakness.
Definitely not.
Sensitive people are often empathetic, caring, creative, and emotionally aware,
I think modern society sometimes misunderstands sensitivity.
especially because confidence and extroversion are often praised more publicly.
That's true.
Quiet personalities are not always fully appreciated.
Which is unfortunate because calm and thoughtful people bring a lot of value to relationships and conversations.
Absolutely.
They often listen carefully and observe details that other people miss.
Observation is another important personality trait.
Observant people notice behavior, emotions, body language, and small changes very quickly.
They often understand social situations deeply, sometimes without even speaking much themselves.
Exactly. Let's teach our listeners a useful sentence pattern.
Good idea.
You can say, one thing I've noticed about people is,
For example, one thing I've noticed about people is that quiet people are often very thoughtful.
or, one thing I've noticed about people is that personality affects communication style a lot.
This pattern sounds natural because native speakers often use observations during conversations.
Another useful pattern is, some people tend to,
For example, some people tend to overthink social situations.
Or, some people tend to hide their emotions when they feel stressed.
Overthinking is another topic strongly connected to personality.
Definitely.
Some personalities naturally analyze situations more deeply than others.
Overthinkers often replay conversations in their minds repeatedly.
Wondering, did I say the wrong thing? Did that sound awkward? What are they thinking about me?
I think many people secretly do that.
Probably more than people realize.
Social anxiety also plays a role sometimes.
Yes, social anxiety can affect even intelligent and capable people.
Socially anxious people may appear quiet or distant externally.
Even though internally they may simply feel nervous or overwhelmed.
That's why personality should never be judged too quickly.
Exactly.
People are much more complex internally than they appear externally.
Confidence is another personality trait that people often misunderstand.
In what way?
Some people think confident people never feel nervous or insecure.
But that's not realistic at all.
Exactly. Many confident-looking people still experience fear and self-doubt.
They simply learn how to manage those emotions more calmly,
Emotional maturity is actually a very important social skill.
especially during difficult conversations or stressful situations.
Emotionally mature people usually respond instead of reacting impulsively.
That's a huge difference.
Reacting impulsively often creates conflict and misunderstanding.
While calm communication usually creates healthier relationships.
Let's introduce another useful expression.
The expression is, not everyone expresses emotions the same way.
This is a very natural sentence in English discussions about personality.
For example, not everyone expresses emotions the same way, and that's completely normal.
Or, not everyone expresses stress openly.
Emotional expression varies a lot between personalities and cultures.
Some people communicate emotions directly,
Others communicate emotions more subtly.
and neither style is automatically right or wrong.
Understanding personality differences requires empathy and patience.
Empathy might actually be one of the most important social skills.
Definitely.
Empathy helps people communicate more kindly and thoughtfully.
It allows people to understand emotional experiences outside their own perspective.
Which becomes especially important in friendships and relationships.
Let's talk about another interesting topic.
Okay?
Alone time.
Ah, yes, that's deeply connected to personality.
Some people need a lot of social interaction to feel emotionally energized.
While others need regular quiet time alone to feel balanced.
And sometimes those differences create misunderstandings between people.
Definitely.
Someone who needs alone time may accidentally appear distant.
Even though they still care deeply about other people.
Alone time is often emotional recovery for introverted personalities.
Exactly.
Solitude and loneliness are not the same thing.
That's such an important distinction.
Solitude can feel peaceful and healthy.
While loneliness usually feels emotionally painful.
Introverted people often enjoy solitude.
Because quiet environments help them think, process emotions, and recharge mentally.
Let's teach another useful sentence pattern.
You can say, I feel more comfortable when blank.
For example, I feel more comfortable when conversations are calm and genuine.
Or, I feel more comfortable in smaller groups.
Genuine is another very useful personality-related word.
Genuine people are honest, authentic, and emotionally real.
Many people value genuineness more than charisma.
Definitely.
Fake personalities usually become obvious over time.
While genuine people often create stronger emotional trust.
Trust is another huge part of personality and communication.
People naturally relax more around emotionally safe individuals.
Emotionally safe is a powerful phrase.
Yes, emotionally safe people make others feel accepted and respected.
They listen without immediately judging.
They communicate calmly during disagreements.
And they respect emotional boundaries.
Boundaries are becoming a more common topic these days.
especially emotional boundaries.
Emotional boundaries help people protect their mental and emotional well-being.
For example, some people need personal space after stressful situations.
Others may avoid emotionally draining relationships.
Learning healthy boundaries is part of emotional maturity.
Definitely.
Younger people sometimes struggle with boundaries because they want everyone to like them.
But emotionally mature people understand that protecting emotional health is important too.
Let's talk about another interesting personality trait, open-mindedness.
Open-minded people are usually easier to communicate with.
Because they listen to different opinions without becoming immediately defensive.
Open-mindedness creates healthier discussions and stronger relationships.
Judgmental personalities often create tension in conversations.
Especially when they criticize people too quickly.
I think emotionally intelligent people try to understand before judging.
That's a very mature approach to communication.
Another personality trait many people admire is patience.
Patient people usually communicate more calmly during stressful situations.
They don't immediately react emotionally.
And they give other people time to explain themselves.
Patience is extremely important in relationships.
Especially because misunderstandings happen naturally sometimes.
No relationship has perfect communication all the time.
Exactly.
Different personalities naturally create occasional misunderstandings.
But healthy communication usually solves problems more effectively than emotional reactions.
Speaking of personality changes, do you think people can change their personality over time?
I think certain core traits remain similar, but people definitely grow and develop emotionally.
I agree.
Life experiences can change confidence, emotional maturity, communication style, and perspective.
Trauma, relationships, success, failure, friendships.
All of those experiences shape personality over time,
Some shy people become more confident later in life.
while some extroverted people become calmer and more reflective as they grow older.
Personality seems more flexible than people often assume.
Definitely.
I also think self-awareness changes personality.
Self-awareness is another extremely important phrase.
Self-aware people understand their own emotions, habits, strengths, and weaknesses more clearly.
And self-awareness often improves communication significantly.
Because emotionally aware people usually communicate more honestly and calmly,
They also understand how their behavior affects other people.
which creates healthier relationships.
Exactly.
I think one of the biggest signs of emotional maturity is the ability to understand different personalities without immediately labeling them as good or bad.
I completely agree.
Quiet people are not automatically antisocial.
Emotional people are not automatically weak.
Confident people are not automatically arrogant.
Sensitive people are not automatically fragile.
Personality is much more nuanced than simple stereotypes.
And understanding those differences can make communication much healthier and kinder.
Now that we've talked about different personality traits, communication styles, and emotional behavior, let's focus on something very practical.
Yes, let's talk about how to describe personality naturally and fluently in English.
Many English learners know simple adjectives like nice, funny, shy, or friendly.
But sometimes they're not sure how native speakers actually describe people in real conversations.
That's why learning natural sentence patterns is so important.
Especially because personality conversations happen all the time in daily life.
People talk about coworkers, friends, family members, classmates, relationships.
Personality vocabulary appears everywhere.
Let's begin with one of the most useful sentence patterns.
The pattern is, how would you describe blank?
For example, how would you describe your personality?
Or, how would you describe your best friend?
This is one of the most common ways to begin personality discussions naturally.
Another useful pattern is, I would describe myself as blank.
For example, I would describe myself as calm, thoughtful, and independent.
Or, I would describe myself as outgoing and energetic.
Notice how native speakers often combine several adjectives together.
Yes, personality is usually more complex than one single word.
Let's look at another useful pattern.
The pattern is, people often say I'm blank.
For example, people often say I'm easy to talk to.
Or, people often say I'm very patient.
This pattern sounds natural because it feels conversational and realistic.
Another very useful pattern is I'm naturally more blank than blank.
For example, I'm naturally more introverted than extroverted.
Or, I'm naturally more emotional than logical.
Native English speakers often compare personality traits this way.
Especially when discussing strengths and weaknesses.
Speaking of strengths and weaknesses, let's talk about personality balance.
That's a really interesting topic.
Every personality trait has both positive and negative sides.
For example, confident people may appear strong and charismatic.
But extreme confidence can sometimes become arrogance.
Exactly.
Sensitive people may be emotionally caring and empathetic, but they may also become emotionally overwhelmed more easily.
Organized people are usually reliable and responsible.
But sometimes they become too controlling or perfectionistic.
Personality is rarely completely positive or completely negative.
Most traits exist somewhere in the middle.
Let's teach another useful sentence pattern.
Good idea. You can say, one thing I admire about blank is blank.
For example, one thing I admire about my friend is her patience.
Or, one thing I admire about him is how calm he stays during stressful situations.
This pattern is excellent for describing positive personality traits naturally.
Another useful pattern is, I usually get along with people who blank.
For example, I usually get along with people who are open-minded and respectful.
Or, I usually get along with people who communicate honestly.
Get along with is a very common English expression.
Yes, it means having a comfortable or positive relationship with someone.
Native speakers use it constantly.
Let's talk about some common mistakes learners make when describing personality.
Mistake number 1 is using personality adjectives incorrectly.
For example, some learners say, I am very sympathy.
But sympathy is a noun.
The correct adjective is sympathetic.
So a natural sentence would be, I'm very sympathetic.
Or, I try to be understanding toward other people.
Another common mistake is translating directly from your native language.
Especially emotional descriptions.
For example, some learners say, he has a strong character.
While understandable, native English speakers might more naturally say, he has a strong personality.
Or, he's mentally strong.
Another common issue is using vocabulary too generally.
Like saying, she is good.
That sentence is understandable, but it sounds vague.
It's much more natural to describe specific personality traits.
For example, she's thoughtful and easy to talk to.
Or, she's very emotionally mature.
Specific details make English sound much more fluent and expressive.
Let's introduce a few more useful personality adjectives.
The first word is reliable.
Reliable people can be trusted and depended on.
For example, he's very reliable and always keeps his promises.
Another important word is stubborn.
Stubborn people resist changing their opinions easily.
Stubbornness can sometimes be both positive and negative.
Exactly.
A stubborn person may be determined and persistent.
But they may also struggle to compromise.
Another useful adjective is considerate.
Considerate people think carefully about other people's feelings.
For example, she's very considerate and always notices when someone feels uncomfortable.
Another important personality word is judgmental.
Judgmental people criticize others too quickly.
Most people prefer emotionally open-minded individuals instead.
Open-minded people usually create safer and more comfortable conversations.
Let's also talk about personality in friendships.
Personality affects friendship dynamics a lot.
Some friendships are built around humor and energy.
Others are built around emotional support and calm conversations.
Different personalities often balance each other well.
For example, calm people sometimes help emotional people feel more stable.
While energetic people can help quiet people feel more socially comfortable.
Personality differences can actually strengthen relationships sometimes.
As long as there is mutual respect and understanding.
Exactly.
Let's teach another useful expression.
The expression is, people's personalities are shaped by...
For example, People's personalities are shaped by life experiences.
Or, people's personalities are shaped by family, culture, and environment.
Native speakers often use shaped by when discussing development and identity.
Because personality develops gradually over time.
Childhood experiences affect personality strongly.
So do friendships, relationships, education, and difficult experiences.
Sometimes painful experiences make people more cautious emotionally.
While supportive environments often help people become more confident and emotionally secure.
Emotionally secure is another excellent phrase.
Emotionally secure people usually feel comfortable expressing themselves honestly.
They don't constantly seek approval from everyone around them.
And they usually communicate more calmly during conflict.
Conflict reveals personality very clearly sometimes.
Definitely.
Some people become aggressive under stress.
Others become quiet or emotionally distant.
Some people avoid conflict completely.
While others confront problems immediately.
Healthy communication during conflict requires emotional maturity.
Probably more than almost any other situation.
Let's talk briefly about first impressions.
Ah, yes. First impressions are strongly connected to personality.
People naturally form impressions very quickly.
Based on body language, tone of voice, eye contact, and communication style.
But first impressions are not always accurate.
Definitely not.
Quiet people may seem cold initially.
Nervous people may seem unfriendly, even though they are kind internally.
And confident people may appear intimidating at first.
Personality often becomes clearer over time.
Which is why patience matters in relationships and communication.
The more time you spend with someone, the more accurately you understand their personality.
Let's do a little speaking practice.
If possible, try answering these questions out loud.
First question, how would you describe your personality?
Second question, are you more introverted or extroverted?
Third question, what personality traits do you admire in other people?
Fourth question, what kind of personalities make you feel comfortable?
Fifth question, do you think personality changes over time?
Try using the sentence patterns we practiced today.
For example, I would describe myself as...
Or, one thing I admire about people is...
Or, I usually get along with people who...
Speaking out loud helps personality vocabulary become more natural and automatic.
And emotional conversations are an important part of becoming fluent in English.
Before we finish, let's quickly review what we talked about today.
We discussed different personality types and communication styles.
We talked about introverts, extroverts, emotional intelligence, sensitivity, and social behavior.
We also learned useful vocabulary and sentence patterns for describing people naturally in English.
And we discussed common mistakes learners should avoid when talking about personality.
Most importantly, we practiced understanding people in a more thoughtful and emotionally intelligent way.
Because personality is complex and every person experiences the world differently.
Now it's time for our question of the day.
What personality trait do you value the most in other people?
Write your answer in the comments.
You can begin your sentence like this. One personality trait I really value is...
We always enjoy reading your answers.
It's a wonderful way to practice your English writing skills.
If you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, and subscribe to Chill English channel.
Subscribing helps us continue creating calm and useful English lessons for learners around the world.
Keep practicing a little every day.
And remember, learning English is a journey.
Goodbye, everyone.
See you next time.